Premier Uhuru Kenyatta. And we were discussing that elephant in the room. Let me start with you, but the choices have consequences, don't they? And it was a political competition. The other side chose what they did, and this is a time for the majority to finally make their way and decide how this country is going. It was a political competition. Let's agree on that at least.
Yeah, that is true. That is true that choices have consequences, but we must also realize that this country has come from very difficult times. Ethnicity is something that is really rife in our country, and we have thought of how do we deal with it for a long time. We have prayed for leadership that would really help us solve this problem, but unfortunately we will have to still wait for a little longer. If you look at what we were just talking about, what justification would you have as, I would put it, for having only one person, one lady from the Western Province, the entire Western Province, the Loya community, the Teso community, and even the communities from Mount Elgon. You are only having one person representing them, yet one ethnic community produces 4 members in the cabinet. And the constitution is very clear that any appointment you make must be inclusive enough. So to me, I would say this is a manifest of impunity still continuing to raise its ugly head in our society. And I think we need to be very candid. We need not to shy away from these realities and facts and mention them. As Barack says, it may be difficult to really reject these names in Parliament, because what I see in Parliament at times, you feel like members still believe that they have to be tied to their political parties or their coalition groupings. So to an extent they may not be that objective. I'm not casting aspersions on the members of Parliament, but that is the feeling that I get. So if that continues to the vetting, it would be very unfortunate. But we need to correct this mess. We need to put a stop to this impunity.
But I must ask you, buddy, just flip the coin. How would it have been different if it was court? Just give me an insight of how different this would have been.
Let me tell you that if we formed the government, I'm sure we would have gone to Central Province and got very good, strong, professional people who subscribe to code ideologies. There are many in Central. We may not get so much votes from Central Province, but there are many. We would go to Kalenjin Rift Valley and get so many of them. And I will tell you, even you could look around and see the Prime Minister's office, the former Prime Minister's office before we left office. You could see representation. You could see representation from all these communities. But again, I'm sure if the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta and the Honorable William Ruto wanted to get professionals from Central Western Province, they would get it. So that is what I would have expected. I don't think I would have expected court government to have 4 nominees from Luo Nyanza and leave Coast Province maybe with only 1 nominee. Or let me give an example, leave Central Province with 1 nominee and have 4 from Luo Nyanza. It would have been unfair.
First, I want to differ slightly with Mheshimiwa technically. I do not think that it makes sense to have more than 1 member of any one ethnic community in the cabinet, because we are talking of not more than 22. Even if they wanted to fill up the entire portfolio, you would not have enough positions to go around. But if you really start having 4 from one community, and there are so many other communities which are not included, I think you are not demonstrating fairness. And I want to emphasize this point, because a lot of fellows, especially young people, I've seen them saying things on social media and so on and so forth. They don't know what they are talking about. We are joking with something called fire, because ethnic passions are destructive. And I have lived in this country for more than half a century. I can assure you that I have never seen ethnic passions get to the point and levels where they are today. People have somehow lived together. They have had certain stereotypes about one another, but they have lived together. In the changed times that we live in, with things like social media, which you can write on just about any crap and get away with it, you are exciting passions. And when we talk about the president as a symbol of national unity, he must reach out there constitutionally. And we're not talking about him going to court. CORD and their supporters had their opportunity. They lost the election. I don't expect that the president is going to get hold of Raila Odinga's bosom friends and other people who are campaigning for him, or Kalonzo Musyoka and so on. But he must make that gesture to go out. Look, we are what is called a pre-industrial society. And pre-industrial societies have certain propensity towards very high symbolic expression. Even while I spoke about women and symbolism and so on and so forth, to the extent that when these things are drawn out, they start asking, who is in it from this community? And I would have expected that the president would appoint 22 people from maybe 22 communities that demonstrate ethnic diversity, and that is not my wishful thinking. It is what is inscribed in the Constitution. And thereafter, I would expect that when we get to the principal secretaries, he would again look at the remaining 22 communities, and he would have his balance and say, look, we are trying. Now, he's going to start off with a polarized country, because you are saying, when you look at the Kisii community, we can say what interests Dr. Fred Matiang'i, and who is a good professional, represents. He does not represent the interests of the Kisii people in this cabinet. If you come back home, Western province, where I was born and reared, the people of Western province will say to you, good Judy Wahungu, professor, done geology and all that. Number one, when we want to go even to congratulate her, where do we start? Where is her home in this Western province of ours? When we want to eat bulls with her, because we must eat bulls with our leaders, where is she going to slaughter the bulls for us? You can go back to Luo Nyanza and you'll find Rachel Omamo. The Luo people will tell you that we had Grace Onyango as the first elected Luo member of parliament. When we wanted to see her, we went to the home of Onyango Baridi. We had Phoebe Asio. And when we wanted to talk to her, we went to the home of Asio. We had Grace Ogot. And when we wanted to talk to her, we went to what the Luo people would say, Duolo Ogot. Where will people go when they want to talk to Rachel Omamo? So this kind of symbolism of a tokenistic nature is not going to help to start bringing people together, particularly when you are one living out certain whole communities completely. The Pokot, the Samburu people, the Mijikenda communities are not there. Two, that you are putting there leaders whom those communities may not be able to resonate with. I think the president has got a sacrosanct constitutional duty to respect and promote ethnic diversity.
But as we try and wrap this up, this issue of ethnicity, regional balance, the question would be flipped then. Don't Kenyans ask this Jubilee coalition of government and tell them what they're supposed to be to deliver and get professionals who they have, with the exception of two, to deliver the Jubilee manifesto?
Well, but the issue the issue here is not whether they've got professionals or not. I think that to me is another level of argument. But let me put it that professionals are found in all communities in Kenya. So if you want professionals and you want it from a particular community, you will get it. The president went to Turkana and campaigned in Turkana and promised Turkanas that I will give you cabinet secretary for mining. And he has not honored that. What do you think the Turkanas would say? And if you don't honor it and you give them cabinet secretary for something, then they get happy. So it could also be understood if you told these communities which have not produced members of cabinet secretaries that the positions were few. There were just 18, and we have filled all of them, and they are few. But they would only buy it if each community, as Barack puts it, gets maybe one slot. But they will not buy it if you give one community 4 slots and you're telling them there is nothing for them, that the positions were few. So what would have happened, if you ask me, was to make sure that each and every region is represented as much as possible. Because you could not represent all regions also. You could not represent all counties. All the 47 counties could not find their way into the cabinet. That is unrealistic. All the 42 communities could not find their way into the cabinet. That is unrealistic. But try to show us, demonstrate to us that you have covered as much as possible with the little or the few slots that you have. That is where the president and the deputy have failed.
Mm-hmm. The next issue, though, as we try to wrap this up, the issue of professionals and coming into, we saw the doctors the other day saying, listen, we don't want James Macharia because he doesn't have a medical background or so. But the president said, listen, at this level, the people looking at for the cabinet secretary is visionaries.
Yeah, I think Wainaina Macharia should be able to do a good job in the health portfolio, particularly if he's going to be conscientious and he's going to be a good listener. He indicated himself that it is a challenge, and I think that is already one positive step, that it is a challenge and that he's willing to listen and to learn. I do believe that ultimately university training ought to prepare you to work in any leadership and managerial position, and therefore I would not cause a lot of hue and cry there. In fact, my concern about professionals and about the cabinet secretaries in that regard pertains to what could turn out to be a broader problem that embraces and enjoins all of us as a nation, that we perhaps will want to look at this again in future, because you have got these people whom you are telling the world that they are not politicians, they are technocrats. They are going to be the heads of these various cabinet portfolios, and in the under the self-same roofs, you have got other professionals who are called principal secretaries. And we have got every likelihood of each one of these fellows trying to say, I'm the one who is in charge. Because in the past you had a politician. The politician provided that political and once again symbolic headship around there. And they worked quite well most of the time anyway with the technocrats who are the permanent secretaries. Now you have got 2 technocrats under the same roof, and they're likely to start stepping on each other's toes, and you find a lot of jostling and stuff like that. But that would be a weakness of a rather broad nature, where all of us are enjoined because we made that constitution. Did we pay adequate attention to it? Time is going to tell.
Mm-hmm. For me, I would say that we have experience of where professionals from one area have excelled in other areas. A number of them, I would give you an example of my former teacher, Kipngetich Julius, who was actually an accountant, then became a management scientist, and finally landed himself as the director of KWS, and I think he did a wonderful job in that sector. There are so many other examples that you would give. So one would excel outside his area of professional orientation. But the question I would want to ask myself is, why did Kenyans see it fit that they don't want politicians or members of parliament to be in the cabinet? They wanted the cabinet to come from outside. I think what Kenyans wanted was to see a situation where one who is in charge of a ministry is someone who is technically trained and oriented towards that ministry. Because otherwise, if you take an accountant from accounting field and put that accountant in an engineering field, I don't think he would still be a professional in that field. But more fundamentally, with this list, my concern is not even with regard to those mismatch, because there is quite a number of mismatch of someone belonging to one profession and heading a different profession. We have Rachel, who is a lawyer, going to defense. We have an accountant going to health, and many others. But my concern is how progressive are these names in terms of bringing reforms in the ministries that they're going to head. How, for example, progressive is Honorable Ngilu in terms of going to bring reforms, land reforms, because she's going to head the ministry.
But she worked with them.
Yes.
And they didn't challenge her. So.
Well, that is true. That is true. That's a fact. But you also understand that that cabinet...
And they replaced her in medical services.
Yeah. Actually, I'm not sure whether... I think she was in water.
At some point she was in medical services.
But let me put it that Barack will appreciate that the Grand Coalition government was really a unique government. Actually, that was a cabinet which was supposed to restore peace in this country. Really didn't matter what we were doing much, so long as peace actually was the primary objective. And that's why we ended up with 44 ministries. Really, there was no justification for that. But what I was saying is that you take the case of an individual like Rotich. Rotich, I've known him, and he has been working in the Treasury and heading macroeconomic sector. One of the problems that this country has faced, or continues to face, is a skyrocketing or spiraling debt levels in this country. Who is supposed to manage that? Who should have come with the debt management strategy? It's Rotich is one of them. So really, are you going to expect him to radically change the treasury and treasury management? Lastly, take the case of Anne, who has been in treasury. She's now going to be the one in charge of devolution and planning. Devolution is at the heart of this country at the moment. In terms of development, we are already tuned that it is the devolved system of government that is going to help us realize even Vision 2030. Anne has been in Treasury, and Treasury has really been an impediment in the devolutions. When we were coming up with the Public Finance Management Act, when you could see a deliberate resistance from Treasury. I am not sure that Anne is going to play the role that Kenyans expect of a cabinet secretary responsible for devolution, and many others. So I think, to me, that's why I started by saying that to me, the president and the deputy president have just hidden behind the fact that Kenyans don't know these faces. But what they have done is to maintain status quo. Yes.
All right, gentlemen, I must close this down. Let's look at the overall list. Our final question. Barack, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you place this list and why?
I would give it 50%, 5 out of 10. 1, in the sense that they have tried to bring professionals on board as they promised. 2, that they have tried to bring new faces as they promised. And 3, that there is the element of gender or representation which has been taken into account. You may want to add to that the faces are relatively young, and yet at the same time that really derogates from the merits, because our youth, the way we understand, would be people who are 35 years and between 18 and 35. So I think,
have any of that.
I think the youth have been served a cold dish, and then the overall merit is derogated by the very fact that the president and his deputy have thrown overboard the element of ethnic and regional diversity and balance, and lost the opportunity and missed the ship to try and bring the nation back to cohesion and integration.
Do you have a problem with any particular name?
Balala and Charity Ngilu should have had the opportunity to go and do other things.
Buddy, for you, again the same question, a scale of 1 to 10, why would you give this entire list? And
you know,
why?
I was almost giving the same marks as Barack, because I don't want to appear like I'm copying him. I've decided to increase the marks a bit. 6 out of 10. Basically, there's the question of gender. I think that has been ably explained by Barack. Also, an attempt to try to contain the political pressure from those who lost elections from coming into the cabinet. I think managing it to 2 was a good trial, even though I would have expected more. Being innovative also a little has impressed me. Putting Rachel in defense to me is a very innovative idea. I just hope she's not going to let and disappoint, to let the president and the deputy down. But let me put it, I have issues. I have issues. Well, I'm confident. I have a lot of confidence in Adam. I wanted to conclude by the positive side. Adam, I have confidence because even though he's an accountant, he's an accomplished guy, he has done a lot in terms of management. He should have probably headed finance, if you ask me, or treasury. But even industrialization and enterprise development is good enough because enterprise development requires a lot of management skills. But I have issues with the nominees I've mentioned, Anne, I've mentioned Rotich, but there is Davis Churchill. I have a lot of issues, gentlemen. First, Davis Churchill is the way he has been conducting his business. I don't want to go into details, but finally, how did he leave IEC? I know the term came to an end, but it was acrimonious. There were issues of procurement. He was at the center of it. And so he has to convince us. There is the question of Charity Ngilu. Has she cleared herself? We need to ask. Kaimeni is very conservative. I've been working with him at the University of Nairobi. I worked with him for about 7 years. Very conservative. So, Michael Kamau is fantastic. In fact, if you ask me, in roads, I think the guy has done a good job. And that minister has a lot of money, but we hear of very few scandals. So I think, to me, he should decide the reward. But others, of course, the full list will be discussed and vetted.
And this discussion actually continues, in the public domain 7 days, and then after that goes to Parliament, then Parliament opens the conversation. So we'll have more and more discussion. But this is what we're going to do. That noise in the background has been the tomorrow's newspaper printing. So I'll try and grab a few copies for you, and let's see what is the headline for tomorrow. All right. Okay. One more copy and we're done here. And if you could just take a look at that, Cabinet of Hope. Here's yours.
Thank you.
Hot of the press, Barack. Yeah, never been done before in the history of journalism. Cabinet of Hope, if you like. That is the headline for the Standard, if you like, with the exception of 2 ex-cabinet Kibaki ministers, Ngilu and Balala. Uhuru and Ruto pick 14 well-grounded professionals to form Jubilee Power Team. Just the headline. Quick reaction for you, Barack.
Well, we still have not exhausted the 22 constitutional portfolio, and I've known politicians to have secret weapons. I will wait until we have reached the 22 threshold before I can say, with the exception of 2 ex-Kibaki ministers, because I do not know why the cabinet is trickling out.
for you, quick reaction?
I would also wait and see. Barack is talking of 22, but I think we were promised 18.
18.
The cabinet, the ministries were consolidated into 18. So we have 2 more. You never know, because when the president first released 4 names, we thought there was not going to be any Ngilu, Balala.
We were even promised by the deputy president.
But finally, we have Ngilu here, we have Balala with us. Tomorrow it may be Mokwere, I don't know, or even Eugene Wamalwa, or those speculations we've had, or based on reactions from Kenyans. I'm sure they left the 2 slots just to see how Kenyans would react, so that maybe they try to correct.
And I don't know whether there are any disabled people here. We have spoken about the youth.
Yeah.
We'd like to see that kind of diversity in this cabinet. We are not necessarily being negative. We are just being truthful to the spirit and letter of the Constitution.
Of the Katiba, if you like. Well, if you grab your copy of the Standard tomorrow, you'll be able to see academic and past records of cabinet nominees, Cabinet of Hope, that you headline for tomorrow. And this has been Katie Live, a quick reaction to the cabinet nominees that were announced early today by President Uhuru Kenyatta. My name is James Smart. Do have a lovely night.
KTN Weather Forecast brought to you by Morteen Doom Power Gad.